So I have my very, very good buddy on the show right now. He is the co-host of the Grindhouse Radio. Welcome to the show, my man Tom Greer. How are you doing, sir?
I- I'm doing great. I've been looking forward to this for a few weeks since we talked about it last weekend. I'm super
Absolutely.
pumped to be here. Thank you so much for having me back.
Now, of course, man. Listen, if I could get you on as many times as possible, I will do so. So if
Oh,
you are available, I will call you. Trust me.
whenever you need me, I am a phone call or a text message away. But whenever you need me.
Absolutely, man. I appreciate that. So obviously, we are two big Met fans. This is our Mets segment for the podcast. So obviously, we haven't spoken. So, what are your takes about the whole us getting Juan Soto? Your reaction, your feeling, your optimism.
I haven't felt this good about landing somebody since the Mets probably maybe since they brought in Beltran. Like when Piazza came here, like I was still a kid, so like I didn't
Right.
really grasp the magnitude of how big that was. I just knew Mike Piazza's my favorite player. This dude's mashing home runs. He's great. This is the first time, like as an adult, that like I'm realizing, holy crap, the Mets just got Juan Soto. All those years of watching lineups with freaking Ike Davis, Kirk Neuenhuis, Omar Quintanilla, um, Wilfredo Tovar, I think was a minor leaguer that came up
Yep.
one time.
Yep.
Like all of those years of just garbage lineups. I'm not saying that Soto's like the finishing piece, but I'm saying like we finally got one of the big guys to come here.
Oh,
Like
absolutely.
this is
Absolutely.
amazing. It's amazing.
Yeah. I mean that was my thing too. It was like finally we actually get a guy that is box office. We haven't had that type of guy for a very long time. We had David Wright. David Wright was when David Wright was right, no pun intended, he was one of the best players in baseball. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like he was end to end, both sides of the field, gold glover, 30 home runs, 100 RBIs type of guy. So, you know, we had that for a little while. We had Beltran, we had Delgado, we had these guys, and they had their little run. But now we have like one of the best premier bats in the sport,
Oh yeah.
a Hall of Fame guy. He's not even in his prime yet. So for him
Yeah.
to literally say to himself, "I want to choose the Mets to end my career," that's something that we've never experienced before. So we're in this space where I remember what Red Sox fans felt like when they won the World Series back in what was that? What was that? Oh 04
Oh
or something
four,
like
yeah.
that.
2004,
Yeah.
yeah.
Like they were like, okay, what do we do now? That's how we kind of feel as Met fans. Like we're like,
Yeah.
okay, we have Soto, but what do we do now? Right? Like, do
Yeah.
we behave differently? Are we now the kings of the town? I don't believe so. I just think that we're making steps to be able to be the franchise that we've always dreamed to be, consistent, making the playoffs every year, being a contender. And that's how I see it. Like, a lot of people
Yeah.
say, oh, World Series a bust. I don't look at this team like that right now. I look at it like we are building something big that we've never seen in Queens since a couple of years in the 80s.
Oh, dude, I totally agree with you. And I want to say, like, what makes this even crazier is like, even with all those names that you mentioned, like Beltran, Delgado, David Wright, and everybody, the Mets have never, outside of Tom Seaver and Doc Gooden, like the Mets have never really had one of the top five best players in all of baseball.
Right.
It's never really happened. I'll give you David Wright because he was amazing, but Juan Soto, it's like Shohei Ohtani, Aaron Judge. You can give me Bobby Witt Jr. and like Juan Soto, and that's where you're going with the top five, top six, wherever. Like the Mets don't ever get that, and that's
No.
what makes this so freaking exciting. And I hate listening to New York sports radio because all it ever is it morphs into a conversation of being like, oh, the Mets are going to take over this town. Like one, that's never going to happen. And if it does happen, it's not going to happen for a really long time. As a Mets fan, all I care about, and truly, if what I define as a successful season, and maybe this is because we haven't seen a lot of winning, is a successful season to me is one that I had fun watching. It wasn't excruciating to get through, and we made the playoffs. Like that's a successful season to me. If the Mets can provide me entertaining baseball like they did this past season, I consider that a win. And I don't like I hope that they build to that. I feel like that they're building to that, but I hate this whole like World Series or bust. Okay, now
Yeah.
you got to do it. Now you got to be the Yankee big brother. No, sports are entertainment. I want to be entertained. I don't want to feel like I should be asking the Mets for my money back because they got shelled by the Reds. You know what I
Right. No,
mean? Like,
absolutely. I agree with you. I think last season was one of the most exciting seasons I've been a part of or I've witnessed as a Mets fan in a very long time. I think the closest season that can kind of compare is 2015.
yeah.
2015 was a really, really fun season, right? And then you had a lot of hodgepodge in between. So if they can be able to continue to build and have fun like that, I think there's a lot of Mets fans that will be satisfied with that. Obviously, you're going to have, our fan base is very divided. Like, you have the really PTSD Met fans where they're never happy about anything. And like, we can go ahead and get Juan Soto and they'll say, well, what else are we getting? And then it's just like, you know what I mean? Like, come on, bro. Like, we just literally got one of the best players in the league. So,
Exactly.
I just want to see this team just build the right way. I trust David Stearns. I trust Steve Cohen. I trust the brain trust that's here right now. Our pitching lab, everything that we've done, our minor league system, our scouting department, our international scouting, everything right now is at the best it's probably ever been at.
Oh yeah.
For this franchise's history. So I just want to see them continue with that. And whatever happens, happens. I just want to be in the mix. As a Met fan,
Oh
I
yeah.
just care about being in the mix.
Yes, I want to still be enjoying baseball. I mean, I always enjoy baseball to a fault. Like it's my favorite sport of all time, so I'll never not enjoy it. But I want to be invested in a Mets season through June and through July. Like I want to like eliminate the June swoon crippling the Mets and keeping them out of the playoffs. Like I don't want that anymore. I just want this team to give me because like I agree with you. Like this past season I think what also helped this past season is the story, like the story of the team being the worst team in baseball, basically in the beginning of the season, and then taking the shot up to being in the NLCS. Like that whole ride was amazing. I don't think there's ever been a Mets. I don't think there's ever been a Mets season that's had me going through Mets withdrawals like this past season did. Like this season ended against the Dodgers. I wasn't like I was sad because they weren't still playing, and like you just got so emotionally invested in
Yeah.
these games that I was just happy that I got to experience that. And I was like, why is the season over? I just want more. I need to see
Right.
more. Like I want to go to City Field and be freaking singing My Girl with everybody in the stadium. Like I want to see the when the lights go out and they start flashing the blue and orange as the opposing
Yeah.
relievers coming out of the bullpen. Like the vibe around City Field this past year was like nothing I had ever experienced. It was,
Absolutely.
and that's all I want. That if the Mets can provide me that on a regular basis, that's a success to me. Of course, as they keep winning, we're gonna start saying, well, you do got to get one World Series at some point, but let's let's build to that. Like we had a
Absolutely.
terrible season 2 years ago. There was a terrible season 2 years ago. They fell on their faces in the wild card game a couple of years ago. Like they're pulling themselves basically out of the ashes and building like a Dodgers East, and I'm here for that. I'm all here for that.
Absolutely. Well said, man. I mean, it's one of those things where it's like, be a low maintenance fan. That's what I'm trying to be,
Yeah.
a low maintenance fan where I'm not asking for much. I just want to make sure that the product on the field is consistent. Guys are having fun. We can trust management to, whatever they say, we can actually believe it and not take it with a grain of salt. So,
Yeah.
those are things that I want to see continue. And right now, I think we're getting that. So
Yeah.
based on the offseason that we had, Tom, we've seen that the additions of Sean Mania, we've had other guys come in. We've made some little moves in regards to the pitching depth. What do you think is still needed on this team? Do you think that we still are looking for a front end starter? Are you looking for more bats? What are you particularly looking for that you want the Mets to add?
See the thing about me is like I'm sure you too, like growing up, like the Mets always had pitching. Like, it was always like the big arms coming up, and that was their thing. The Mets have been a pitching factory forever.
Yeah.
So part of me looks at the rotation right now, and while I love Sean Manaea, I thought he was an amazing. I thought he was it was an amazing story to watch him turn himself around and basically redevelop himself as a pitcher, basically being the team's ace. So I love that Sean Manaea came back. Montas, I'm willing to just be like, okay, Jeremy Hefner sees like he can do what he did for Luis Severino, because Montas didn't look terrible last year, but
Right.
he's not amazing. Senga, you're gonna have to prove it to me. You're really gonna have to prove. Like, I've seen Senga be good. He's just outside of a playoff start, I believe. I've seen Senga be good. I just need to see that he can do it on a consistent basis. David Peterson, if he gives me what he gave me last year, I'm all good. I think I would even slide him above Montas at that moment.
Absolutely. I'm with you with that.
The bottom of the order, like, shaping out to be like Clay Holmes, Blackburn, and Griffin Canning. Like, a part of me wants one more pitcher, one more starter, but I don't know where that's coming from. I don't know. I don't think there's really anybody of note available. And it's like, it doesn't sound like Sasaki's coming here. So the rotation, this is probably the rotation that they're starting with this year. So all I can think of that the Mets need at this point is a DH. Santander would be cool. We're going to get into the Pete conversation later, so I have some other ways that DH gets switched. I'd like, and I'd just like to stock the bullpen. Like, Tanner Scott, give Tanner Scott a 3 or 4 year deal. Like, I need the bullpen is like outside of Edwin Diaz, and I mean, like, that's kind of it. Like, there's really not that many people in this bullpen, because you'd have to imagine McGill's going to wind up in there now that he's going to be forced out of the rotation. I don't trust Reed Garrett, and it's a lot of other just names. Denell Nunez was pretty good, but
yeah,
they need somebody to get. They need guys to get to Diaz. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I think that if they can be able to get another front end starter, that'd be great. But I think bullpen help is the biggest need right now, because you can never have enough bullpen arms. So if you can be able to add, I would love to get Brooks Raley back. He had his whole season was lost. So we can be able to get him back, especially as a lefty out of the pen. I mean, those are things that you need, right? You need situational guys that can be able to get you out of jams. And I think that he still has great stuff. I mean, David Robertson is still out there. He's really good, really reliable. So there's a couple of guys that you can be able to still go after, because right now, there's a ton of relievers on the market. The reliever market is going to start heating up anytime soon now, right? So, you can be able to get a lot of guys at a premium cost. You don't have to, commit multiple years to a lot of guys out there. It's going to be one year deals. So if they can be able to kind of package off or package up a couple of guys, I think that's the best thing. But going into what you said, obviously we still need more firepower offensively.
Yeah.
Would I like a Bregman? Yes, but it just depends on how you're gonna go ahead and align everybody else on in the lineup and positional wise. Santander would be good as a DH. You don't really want him in the outfield too much because he is a butch out there. But there's different things that we can be able to do. They can get creative even in the trade market as well. So we'll see what they do with that. But the biggest, obviously, elephant in the room is Pete Alonso, right? Yeah. Met fans are clamoring for him to come back. Media, he's been the talk for the last 2 years in regards to what's happening with Pete. Ever since he turned down the big time extension, the 6-year was $153 million deal.
Yeah, it's around there.
Now he's been on the clock. So for me, you're hearing all these reports that a couple of days ago, it was the last week, Boris wanted the Prince Fielder contract. They wanted a 9-year deal. Then it went down to, well, Pete wants a 6-year deal. Then we heard that now recently he's willing to go to a 3-year deal only with the Mets. No, not with anybody else. So for me, it's just like the way the Mets have played this, they've played it masterfully, in my opinion, because they never bet against themselves. They never bid against themselves. whatever the market is, you go ahead and let Pete dictate the market, let the other teams dictate the market, and then we can go ahead and have a negotiation. But Pete right now doesn't have a market, Tom. And
Yeah.
for him to continue to try to wait this out, I had said it last week on the show, is that when you go get Scott Boras, your entire strategy is to get paid. It doesn't matter who's paying you. Your whole strategy is to get paid. That's why he fired his agent. But sometimes you can literally kind of destroy your own value and kind of botch your own free agency if you go ahead and do so. The first base market is non-existent. You saw what Christian Walker got. You saw what Paul Goldschmidt got. There's no big market out there for a 4-year, 5-year contract. So for him to even still be in this situation, and the Mets have been saying to him, we've always wanted to give you a short-term deal. Why not agree to this? And we're hearing this now. We're hearing that they're far apart on certain things, and it's just like it's getting to the point where a deal needs to get made.
Yeah.
Like I hope that they can be able to come together within the next 4 days, get this done, so we can be able to start hammering out the remaining parts of this team. But what are your thoughts on the entire process, the negotiation, how that's gone as a Met fan? How do you feel personally?
So like if we're talking to like the little kid in my mind that was like grew up a Mets fan, like I would be clamoring for Pete to come back, like just do whatever it takes, bring Pete back. But like looking at the Mets as they currently sit, I understand that having Pete Alonso behind Juan Soto could help. But what I do also understand is that Pete Alonso is in his early 30s, and it would be irresponsible to give him anything right now. It would be irresponsible to give him anything more than I'm stretching it when I say a 4-year deal. You know what I mean? Because you've seen back 2 years. I know he did have 40 home runs, not this past season, the season before, but it's been his batting average has been dipping. He has been hitting the long ball, but he doesn't put a lot of balls in play other than hitting home runs. I think his defense is, I think people rag on him way too much for his defense. I know he had a couple of problems with foul ball pop flies in the playoffs, but
his stretching ability is elite.
It's insane. Yeah, I think he gets disrespected a little when they talk about his defense, but I understand he's not Matt Olson. He's not any of these Gold Glove first basemen.
He's not a super athletic guy.
No, absolutely not. And while I want Pete here sentimentally, I personally think that the Mets wind up positionally being better if they move Vientos to first base, sign Bregman. The only thing that scares me about Bregman is that he's looking for a 7-year deal. That also kind of scares me.
Right.
And moving Vientos to first. And then if you really want to, really want to, you go pay Vlad in the offseason. Because that's where it kind of sucks for Pete. Because Pete, he'll take a 3-year deal from the Mets with opt-outs. But if let's say he has a big year, let's say he takes that and he has an opt-out after the first year. Okay, Mets sign it, great. Let's have a nice day. Let's say Pete has an okay season or a good season. He's still not going to make, even if he has a great season, he's not going to make more money than Vlad Guerrero. He's going to make significantly less than Vlad Guerrero. Vlad's going to be making not Soto money, but a crazy amount of money because he's still really young.
Yeah, he's going to be making anywhere between, 475 and 540.
Yeah,
over
exactly.
the span of his contract.
Exactly. And also like how many, it's hard for me to also look at this because like you can't sign Pete with the possibility of moving him to DH because Francisco Lindor is going to be here for the next like 10 years. And you'd have to imagine as he gets older, he's going to have to start filling in some days at DH. Like, right. I don't want to clog that position up with like
same thing with Soto.
Yeah, exactly. Soto will probably do that towards the end of his contract. You can't bring in Pete to be a DH. And then if you bring in Bregman and Pete, like what's going to happen when Bregman starts breaking down? Is he going to have like how many DHs do we want to eventually have on this team? You know what I mean? So
right.
I would like to see Pete back just for the sentimentality. The guy is a homegrown Met. He's our guy. I don't think there's really any other fit for him other than the Mets. But if he didn't come back, and they pivoted and was like, hey, Alex Bregman, come on in, and Vientos, we're gonna move you to first base for a season, and then we'll figure it out next year. I still think they're a really good baseball team. I mean, Bregman's proven in the playoffs. The dude gets big hits when it matters. He's a really good defender at third. Like, I'm not as devastated if I think just sentimentally I'd be devastated if Pete left, just because of all the fun moments, like that home run he had against the Brewers to send him to the NLDS is like you hear the Moneyball edit and it brings a tear to your eye. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
absolutely.
So
Absolutely. I mean, look,
so
I think that home run in itself kind of saved Pete's legacy in New York. I think
yeah.
if he doesn't have that home run and he doesn't have the postseason that he had, I don't even think that we're having this conversation. I think that,
Oh
the
no, yeah.
Mets have already moved on and filled that position. So, you know, I myself, me and the Silent Assassin, we're big time Mets fans. We argue all the time. And she's like, she wants Pete back, but I'm kind of with you. I wouldn't mind having Pete back, but I also like the flexibility of being able to do different things, right?
Yeah.
Not really being locked into Vientos being your everyday first baseman for years to come. He has some ability to play first. He can be
Yeah.
able to play third. He can play DH. Now you can be able to move things around and have a more fluid lineup and have guys just kind of interchangeable. I'm okay with that. And then also giving the young guys an opportunity to be able to step in there and kind of contribute as well, right? While you're waiting for a generational bat to come. If that's Vladdy, if that's somebody else, who knows, right? So
Yeah.
that's the thing. I think that the Mets have handled this very, very analytically, very strategically, and they're taking the emotion out of the negotiation process. And that's what you want your front office to do. A lot of times where I think if this was 10 years ago, Pete's already signed a 6-year deal with the Mets because of the public pressure, right? Like you would have probably seen
Maybe
that happen. Possibly.
I would say possibly, and only reason I would say that he would probably be back is because of how still dedicated to homegrown guys that they still were. Like,
Yeah.
they did give Wright the mega deal, and I mean, I think that was well warranted. I think the thing with Pete is it's never. I mean, and I guess this is just because it's the Steve Cohen effect, where I don't care about money, dollar signs. I don't care. Like, you're gonna raise ticket prices whether or not you give somebody hundreds of millions of dollars anyway.
Exactly.
Like, I don't care how much you give them. It's the years that's the problem.
Yeah.
I don't want to be locked. As much as I love Pete and as much as I love all of those moments, I physically can't bring myself to feel like a 5, 6, 7 year deal makes sense for a guy who's had who's shown 2 years of decline, and then in his contract year couldn't have his best season. That's when guys have their best seasons. Guys go out on their contract year, get a whole bunch of money, and then people bitch about it for years. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? So Pete didn't do that. He as much as I love him, he's big, doofy. The playoff pumpkin was fun. All those home runs are fun. I can't in good conscience say here's the Prince Fielder contract. Here's 5, 6, 7 years. I don't want to do that because it's just going to lock up that position. And they do got young guys coming up. We were talking about Bregman.
Right.
Bregman might not even happen because they got to find a spot for Mauricio if Mauricio
Right.
is going to be something. And I forgot how big that dude is. Like, I saw
Oh
on
yeah.
Instagram, I saw the pictures of him standing next to Soto. He is a giant of a
He's a
human. And
monster. He's a monster. And
I
listen,
don't know why they can't figure out him, just to make him play first. Dude's
right.
giant. Like,
He may have potential to play first. You have Clifford. There's a lot of guys that you can be able to really look at that farm
forgot about
system and
Clifford.
say, you know what? We have some flexibility here. And I think that's probably what Stearns is saying. Like, we do have some flexibility here. Do we actually want to lock ourselves into a guy that may not age the best? Because you got to remember
Yeah.
too, like, and this is what a lot of Met fans don't really understand when you're taking the emotion out of it and you're just looking at the bare bones of what somebody's going to do. You're not paying Pete Alonso for what he did in the Mets. You're paying Pete Alonso for what you think he's going to do in a
Yeah.
Mets uniform for the next X amount of years. So if he's already showing signs of I'm not going to say breakdown, but there's some decline there over the last 2 years. How can you feel confident to say, okay, we're going to give him a 6-year deal if he's showed you that decline in 2 years already? You know what I mean? If he was 26 years old, he'd have got paid already, right? He's a right-handed,
I agree.
the right-handed bat. That's not, that's not very desirable in the open market for a first baseman. So there's a lot of factors that are working against Pete Alonso right now.
Yeah, and I agree. And look, if we could even be wrong. Pete could sign a deal, and he could go be a freaking amazing first baseman, monster. Career shoots right back up in the sky. But I'm gonna bet on the side of Father Time. Father Time wins 9 times out of 10, unless you're Tom Brady, I guess. And so I'm gonna say he's probably more towards the back half of his career than he was towards the front. But what I will also say is, we talk about, like, there's a lot of conversation about Ryan Clifford, Ronnie Mauricio, kind of Acuna, but he did get a lot of playing time, and there are a lot of talk about these young guys. And while I love talking about prospects, I love the idea of young guys coming up. Like, we got Vientos, coming up through our farm system being amazing. Pete coming up through our farm system being amazing. With all of those hits, we talked about before how there are those pessimistic Mets fans. I myself have been one from time to time. And when I hear that young guys are going to come fill those roles, my brain goes back to Lastings Millage, Fernando Martinez, and all of those guys that I heard were can't miss, and then it blows up in our faces. So, like, a part of me is like, yes, I want to see those guys, and I really hope that they're good. I would like to have somebody at a position that's been there, done that, and can still produce. That's why, and also, like, this Pete Alonso coming to the Mets saying, I'll take 3 years with some opt-outs, screams to me that he's getting offers from nobody.
Yeah.
That's what that tells. Everybody says the Rangers were going to make a push. They did. And everybody said that
the Red Sox,
the Nationals, now the Mariners are the big one that says the Mariners might pay him. I don't know if the Mariners were giving him a deal. I don't know if he would come to the Mets and say, "Hey, I'll come here for 3 years with a couple of opt-outs if you guys are cool with that." The Mets literally just sit back, put their hands in their pockets, and just wait for Pete to come down, because it's going to happen. Like, he's not that crazy $200 million deal for 6 or 7, 8, 9 years. It's not happening. It's not happening.
And it may not even happen next year, Tom, even if he does bounce back and hits 50 home runs, because he's another year older, and teams are going to look at it like, okay, he had a big year, but we're paying for you going down the road. We're not paying for what you just did. You know what I mean? So that's the scary part for his market.
Yeah, and how much, like, as great of a player as Paul Goldschmidt, we'll all agree, for a long time was one MVP candidate. I think he's got an MVP. He does have an MVP. I think potential Hall of Famer. I haven't looked at the numbers, but an amazing player. Do you think the Cardinals loved that deal what did they get out of that? What did they get out of the Goldschmidt and Arenado era? Nothing. They got nothing. That team was nowhere near a World Series to my recollection since he signed that deal. So if Paul Goldschmidt's not putting you over the hump with all that money, all those years, if Paul Goldschmidt's not doing it, what's going to make somebody think a 32-year-old Pete Alonso is going to do with a long-term deal? Like, it sucks that he didn't really come to life in the minors until he was a little older. So he didn't come up until he was in his late 20s. But I mean, unfortunately, that's the hand we're dealt. And I just don't see any other place for Pete. I think he's going to have to settle for like a 3. And again, I'm stretching it at 4. I don't think I'd go past 4. He's going to have to take that probably from the Mets, and off and away we go. I'm okay. Like, and just to be clear, I'm totally okay with giving Pete 3 or 4 years and being totally out on Vlad Guerrero Jr. I'm totally fine with that. Because that means we can just go get Kyle Tucker next year.
That would be nice. Now, listen, I'm with you. I am not comfortable with a 4-year deal for Pete, but if they go there, I could understand why they do it. It's just one of those things where, is Pete going to be happy once he signs this contract, right? Because, there's bad blood, there's bad feelings. Remember when, Aaron Judge was going through his negotiations. He admitted that there was a little bit of feelings and bad blood there on his part or his side, right? So is there going to be some bad blood or some hard feelings from Pete Alonso or for Pete Alonso, whatever it is? And is that going to reflect in his season? Because we've seen what the pressure does in a walk here. We've seen what the pressure does in regards to when the trade talks start to swirl for him, right? He was not the same lovable polar bear that you normally see. Like, his character has kind of been, waning a little bit over the past few years. So are we going to get the guy that's locked in, that's, loves the Mets, LFGM? Are we going to see that, or we're going to see another guy that looks like he's pressing? All of those things, kind of concern me in regards to when I'm hearing these 3-year deals with an opt-out after every year, right? Like, what are you actually signing up for?
Yeah, look, to be honest with you, the opt-outs after every year, in my opinion, they work in the Mets' favor, because if Pete has another down, let's say they gave him 3 years, you can opt out after every single one of them. Let's say that that's the case. The Mets are going to look at it. If he has another down year and he just decides to opt out, okay, we're good. Like, you did it for us. You know what I mean? Yeah, I don't think I'm too afraid. Like, again, I also think if you're signing a contract, that means your paycheck is going to have a significant amount of zeros at the end of it. I don't think you should be upset whatsoever. I don't think, but I get that this is a process where, like, there's probably unless you love the team and they just love you, like, unless it's a David Wright situation where, like, you grew up a Mets fan, like, you weren't going anywhere, like, you wanted to stay here, the Mets loved you and they were going to basically give you whatever you want. That's fine. Pete's not very much not in that situation. And I honestly just kind of lost my train of thought on where I was going with that. But my my issue with it is like, I think Pete he's gonna kind of take the beating that he's taken around the league, because it's not just from the Mets. Like, sure, you might be scorned by the team that brought you up, but nobody else is offering you a deal. Like, nobody else is giving you what you want. So at
The
some
entire
point, you
league
kind of
is
have to
scared.
realize what
Yeah.
exactly. The entire, like, the Yankees needed a first baseman. Do you think they were going to go have you bat behind Aaron Judge? No, they didn't want you. If there are plenty of teams that need first basemen, need power hitters, need DHs, and nobody's running to knock on Pete Alonso's door. So, like, sure, you could be pissed at the Mets, but just, I mean, like, be pissed at baseball, because they don't value you the way you value you. So the way I look at it is, if you come to a deal with the Mets, this is the team that brought you up, gave you this opportunity, is now giving you another opportunity. I feel like he has no reason but to just come to camp and work. It's either that or you just don't want to be a baseball player. You know what I mean? Like, it's not. I get that. Again, I get that there's probably bad blood, because it would be like if to Pete Alonso, the Mets are like family, because it's basically all he's known since he's been in the majors. So it would be like, hearing some negative things from, like, a family member. Maybe that's kind of a similar feeling. But I mean, at some point, you got to realize that you kind of have to get over it and realize that this is that baseball's a business. The Mets are trying to do what's best for them. So you're probably going to hear some things that you're not necessarily going to like, but I mean, that's just the price of doing business in baseball. You know what I mean? The Mets aren't just going to, in good faith, say, "Oh, Pete, we love you. You're great. Here's all of this money." No, it's like, "Pete, we love you. You're great, but how are you going to help this baseball team?" You know what I mean?
Yeah, nah, definitely, man. Definitely. Pete needs to make up his mind. I hope that they get this deal done within the next 4 days to a week, because, there's things to do. Polar bear, you're not going to be the polar bear anywhere else outside of Queens.
No.
So just know that branding is everything. Being where you want to be, being where you're comfortable, your entire career, and also you can be able to finish your career in a place where you are comfortable. That says a lot more than signing a $300 million deal in a place that you don't want to be. So,
Tiki
yeah.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was just listening to WFAN earlier today, and Tiki Barber had an interesting take on it, where he said that this whole situation wherever this goes, could end up kind of tarnishing Pete's legacy a little bit. So, Pete, homegrown Met, came up, everybody loved him. Mets give him this extension that he should have taken. Given him this extension, he denies it, goes and hires Scott Boras because he wants to get the best offer possible, which you can't fault him for, obviously. But if he leaves the Mets and goes and signs with, like Tiki said, with like the Diamondbacks, and he's not the transcendent superstar that's that's the poster for the franchise, that's he's not what he is here. The Diamondbacks are never retiring his jersey. He's just going to fade into obscurity.
Right.
You know what I mean? So like all his whole value is coming back to Queens, because if he leaves the Mets, like the Mets are never bringing him back. We're not retiring his number. We're not having a bring back Pete Alonso.
Not going to be in the old timers game for you.
No, because you decided to leave and you didn't really finish the job. You didn't like, sure, the rookie of the year was cool, but he never really won anything here. With Pete on the roster, what do we have? 2 good seasons, maybe. I think it was the one where they won over 100 games in this past year. I feel like these are the only 2 seasons that we had out of good Pete Alonso. So, ultimately I think he's going to be back. I just can't envision a team giving him the fielder contract. I can't envision a team giving him something that'll tell him I'm not going back to the Mets. Unless they have a meeting and somebody in the Mets says something negative about him that he doesn't like and just is like, screw you guys, I'm getting out of here. I don't see another fit for Pete. And again, if Pete wants to win, where else is he going to go? This lineup with Pete Alonso in it, assuming Pete can get, if all Pete does is hit 40 home runs, that's a lot. This lineup is pretty freaking lethal. I still think that they would need a DH, but this lineup is still pretty freaking lethal. So I just, all signs point to Pete being a Met again. And I just think it's a matter of time at this point. I think we're just days away from seeing I honestly, like we talked last week, we talked about doing this segment last Friday. And one, other than the fact that my internet was terrible at the house, one of the reasons that I wanted to wait was because I thought that this might be like the last time I came on your show, where as we were driving to the studio, we got the news that DeGrom signed with the Rangers. Right. I was like, you know what, maybe if we push it a week, we'll be about to hop on and Pete will just sign with the Mets and this will be a whole conversation. It didn't happen, obviously, but
that would have been interesting. That would have been.
Can I ask you a question though?
Yes,
can I
sir.
ask you a question though?
Yes.
Okay, so we did just. I want to get your I want to gauge your opinion on this, and I kind of think I know where you're going to go. But so we were just talking about how it might be good for the Mets to add another starter. Well, the Texas Rangers have made it known that they're open for business, and there were talks that Jacob deGrom might get traded from the Texas Rangers. Would you bring him home?
In a heartbeat.
Thank you. Okay, that's
honestly, as much as I dogged DeGrom for leaving, right, and man, did I let him have it, right? Mm-hmm. I understand it. I understood why he did it, and honestly, he's a high AAV guy. We wouldn't need him for any more than 15 to 20 starts a season if we can be able to get. All we need DeGrom for is to be ready for the playoffs, and if we're a playoff team. And you can gear this guy up for the play. Why not? Why not? In a short-term situation like that, if he can be able to be healthy, we're talking about one of the greatest pitchers we've seen in the past 20 plus years, right? Yeah. So, I'd be open to it. It's just about, does it make sense, and does it make sense for the team that we have currently? We're a team that's going for it. If we're going for a pennant, if we're in a pennant chase and all that stuff, cool. It does make sense. But if we're just a team that's kind of just like malaise and we're not really contending for anything, then it really doesn't make sense.
Oh, yeah, I agree with you. It's just the reason I think about it is because I honestly think, like, we were just talking this whole time about like smart, prudent moves that the Mets can make to make themselves better. I don't even necessarily know if that move does it, because while Jake is amazing, he does still have all of those injury concerns.
Yeah.
I honestly, like, that trade, assuming we're not like giving up the entire farm system, which I don't think we would have to, because it's a lot of money and he hasn't really pitched a lot. Outside of trading like massive prospects, like, I would almost just do it for the sake of doing it, to be honest. Like, we talk about like how many times have the Mets have had one of the best baseball players ever. Well, the Mets for a long time had the best starting pitcher in all of baseball, like the best pitcher I have seen in my entire life being a Mets fan. So like if I have to choose between like the Pete Alonso nostalgia or the Jacob deGrom nostalgia, I'll take Jacob deGrom 10 times out of 10
100%.
because like that's all we had. It was all just garbage starts and garbage baseball, but the event was Jake Day. It was going to see Jake deal, and like I would give so much to go to a Mets game and hear a simple man playing on the PA while he's warming up before the game. Like,
absolutely, I'm with you, Tom. I'm with you. I like I said, I bashed him because I was hurt and I didn't like it, but you know the fact that we would be able to bring him home kind of would feel like Seaver. It'd feel like very Seaver-ish. You know what I mean?
Could you imagine the insanity at Citi Field for Jake walking to the mound in his
first man, that would be insane.
Like
that would be. I think every Met fan across the world would smile because it's like, you know, you get that feeling back of what if he's healthy? What if we can catch lightning in a bottle and have all of these things line up and then we have this magical playoff run? Like, so yeah, I would definitely be open to that if the Texas Rangers actually do, you know, want to move on from that particular contract.
Perfect scenario, 100%. Trade deadline. Perfect scenario, the Rangers are out of it and they're looking to dump salary, and the Mets could use like one more starter, and they're like, here, look, we'll take all the salary off of you. Just take a couple of like maybe one high and maybe one low level prospect. Here you go. Send Jake back, and then Jake's here for the playoff run. Like that would be.
I like it.
If there's anything that could if there's anything that could raise the vibes from last season, it would be that.
Yeah,
that would
100%.
Be insane.
100%. I'm with you on that. Well, listen, your mouth to the baseball guy's ears, Tom.
Steve Cohen's ears.
Steve Cohen's ears. Let's see how the season plays out. Hopefully, we can be able to get a good result. You know what we want. But listen, it was great to have you on the show, man. It's always a pleasure talking to you because you're so knowledgeable. You know what you're talking about. You're so passionate as well. And that's kind of the reason why I always like having these conversations with you, because you can feel the passion, and people that are listening to this, they can really, really relate to that. So thank you for coming on, my man.
Dude, I appreciate you got my number now, so anytime you need me, just reach out. I love coming on your show. I love every opportunity to just talk sports with you and just hang out. This is an amazing time. I appreciate it so much. I will also never turn down an opportunity to talk about the Mets because you know it's like an addiction for me. So I love it, and this has been freaking so much fun. And again, like I said, I can't thank you enough for bringing me on again.
All good, my man. We'll talk again.
Talk soon.
All right.